don't try to confine yourself to the world's box. And now the only person that can hold you back from doing the things you're called to do is you. You are worthy. Remember that. What is up, you guys? It's Latrice, and I'm back again with another episode here on the Lift Her Up podcast, on Lift Her Up TV, here on YouTube. Thank you so much for all your continued support. If you have been watching for a while, then welcome back. Welcome back. Good to see you. And if this is your first time tuning in, then just welcome. Thank you all again so much for hitting that like button, that subscribe button, for commenting, for sharing it with your friends. And I'm hearing so many things about different people sharing it with friends across the country and everything like that. So that really warms my heart that you guys find so much value in this content. And I love doing that. I love being on this platform for you guys. So just welcome. Just thank you so much. And I love being on this platform because I'm able to share a different side of myself that some people might not see on a regular basis, even if you do have like a personal relationship with me. But I'm able to share different parts of my life and my lifestyle that I might not have an opportunity to in different areas. So I really enjoy that. And there are some things that I share on here that I haven't really had the opportunity to disclose in some of my more personal relationships. And it's not because I was ashamed or anything. It's just because I don't know. I just wasn't comfortable, maybe. Not sure. Or maybe it just didn't come up. Or maybe there was some stigma that was going on as well. But I have talked about my therapy journey a little bit on this platform. But I've been in therapy for a few years now. And it started off being sort of like a once a week situation. And that was like back in 2020. But thankfully, now that I've gotten all the proper tools and everything that I need to manage my own mental and emotional wellness, I'm able to cut back a bunch on therapy. So I pretty much go for wellness checks, maybe a couple times, one every other month or so, or once out of the quarter. It really depends on what's going on in life. Sometimes I still need it more than other times because a lot be going on in life, right? But I wanted to share something that I recently learned in one of my last visits with my counselor. I was sharing with her how I've been in this season where God has been speaking very loudly to me, but I'm still very not confused, but I feel a little lost at some points because I don't exactly know what next looks like. And I'm still kind of walking around like, what am I really doing? And I'm grateful because he hasn't been silent. Like I know some people have experienced, even myself, where it feels like God is not saying anything at all. Right. But it is still an uncomfortable place because it's like, what's going on? What's next, Lord? Like, what are you doing in this season? And the thing that I've struggled with most is shedding my timeline from my life and shedding what I think my life should look like, right? So in the expectations that I have of my life and replacing it with his will. So that's always been my thing with God. That's always been what he's always tries to teach me in my journey. So constantly just renewing my mind and being like, oh, this is what God wants for me. And this is what I thought I wanted for myself, but I'm going to take what he wants for me instead. So I was expressing that to her. And her response was, oh, you sound like you're in the right place. And in my mind, I'm thinking, girl, did you hear what I just said? I'm telling you that I'm uncomfortable and I don't know what God is doing in this season or this next season. And you talking about you sound like you in the right place. Oh, okay. So that might not have been what I thought I needed to hear in the moment, but it definitely started to resonate with my spirit. So it stayed with me for a while, and that's been some weeks ago now, like well over a month ago now. But that idea just kept like ringing in my spirit so much. So I was just reflecting on what she had said. It sounds like you're in the right place. You're in the right place. And I've been reading and studying the book of Exodus, which I've shared with you guys before, for about like the past 2 months or so. I've been in Exodus. And it really just helped me to reflect on my own journey, in my waiting season and everything like that. And so I realized that some of the most pivotal points in our waiting, as we're waiting for God to do the next thing, and as we're preparing or going through any transitional period, some of the most pivotal things that we have to understand and recognize are timing, place, and pace. Okay, so I really wanted to talk about that for this episode. So I kind of titled this like right time, right place, and God's pace, because these are some things that we have to understand in order to accelerate and in order to move past all the venting sometimes that we do to God or to other people, because God's trying to do something in our lives. But if we don't understand the exact reasonings or have a revelation on why he does the things that he does, then we find ourselves in a place where we're venting about everything we're going through instead of actually learning the lessons that he wants us to learn in the season that we're in. So I want to talk about timing, and I want to talk about place and God's pace, because so many times a lot of us try to get ahead of what God wants to do in our lives. We think that we're more ready than we actually are, but God is like, no, like I need to take you back a couple of steps because like you missed a few things in this last chapter. So I need to take you back a little bit so you can learn all the tools that you need in order for you to go to the next step. So timing is everything, especially to God. So we've heard and we know that God's timing is perfect, right? But it's because there is literally a season for everything. Ecclesiastes tells us that, right? King Solomon was like, there's a time and season for everything under the sun. So, and it's important for us to know what God's timing is like, because we're able to discern what seasons we're in. And when we're able to discern our seasons, then we can know what God is trying to do in us and through us at the same time. So, for example, when you're in the waiting season, God is usually building your trust and faith in him. And when you're going through a testing season, it'll be test after test after test. That's like a preparation season. And when there are times when you feel isolated, like people that you normally hang out with, you don't hang out with them no more. You've distanced yourself from some of the closest people around you. Or maybe God has distanced you from people. You've kind of been in a cave. You've been to yourself more. God has been calling you to, and he's kind of been doing this with me lately as well, keeping things to yourself more, sort of working more in the background and working on yourself internally. It starts to feel like you don't recognize yourself because you're changing so much, because you're evolving internally so much. Those are usually wilderness seasons. So the Lord helped me to realize that that sometimes we try to force a season, or we try to force ourselves out of a season when it's not time yet, which then throws off our pace. And we can't have a thrown off pace if we're trying to do God's work, right? Because he places us in certain seasons for a reason. Okay. And like I said, I was reading Exodus. So in Exodus 13, God leads the Israelites out of Egypt, right? And while they escape, right after they escape, the Lord leads them into the wilderness. He actually leads them around the foreign land where the Philistines lived, because he knew at the time that they were not prepared to face war. And it literally says the people will change their minds and return to Egypt if they face war. That's what God said. That is Exodus 13, verse 17. God knew that it was not the right time for the Israelites to face that type of war. But fast forward a couple of chapters, and then they're at war, and they're winning battles and everything like that. But he knew that they weren't at their most confident yet, that they had just come out of bondage. So therefore, he sent them into the wilderness so that he could instill a confidence in them, because he was feeding them manna from heaven and everything like that. He was leading them. So he knew that the more time that they spent alone with him, that they would get more confident that he would go before them and help them to conquer and fight their battles, right? Another example that we see with timing in the Bible is David. So David was anointed king. He was like 14, 15 years old. And I read 1st, 2nd Samuel, Kings. I was reading that towards the end of last year into this year. And I always had this misconception that David immediately went to the throne, and that he immediately won over the hearts of all the Israelites once he was crowned king. But David was anointed as a teenager. He did not get the crown until about double that age. So he was about 30 years old when he actually got the crown. He ruled for 40 years. But even when he got the crown, when he was king, he was not accepted by all the Israelites. Okay, go back and read if you ain't know. But there was actually a civil war within the Israelites, because they had their appointed king by the people, which was Saul, and then they had God's appointed king, which was David. So there was this divide within the Israelites about who was supposed to be king at that time. But obviously God's chosen one over all. But that's just another example of David having to wait, there being a perfect time in order for him to actually achieve the throne, and for him to have the fullness of his authority over the land of Israel. Also, multiple instances of Jesus saying that it wasn't time yet. Many times people try to steer Jesus away from the Father's will. And there are multiple times where Jesus says, I can't do that. That's not what my Father said. I'm going to go do this instead. He would elude people. So he would perform a miracle. He would perform a sign. And then when the Pharisees would try to catch up to him, try to arrest him or something, the pastors will say he eluded them. He ran and not ran away because he was scared, but ran away because he knew that it was not yet his time to go to the cross. There is an appointed time for Jesus to go to the cross. There was an appointed time for him to interface and meet the people that he did, for him to perform the miracles that he did. Everything has an appointed time attached to it. All right. So in all these situations, if any of these people had rushed, okay, if they had rushed what God wanted to do, then the promise would have been ruined, and it would have been forfeited, because they rushed the pace and the timing of God. So simply put, do not let your impatience ruin your promise. We have to take a step back, evaluate, make sure we have an ear for God, so that we can know what is the right time for me to do this. It might not be now, but the Lord might not reveal it to you. He might just keep telling you, wait, keep waiting, because God's timing is ultimately perfect, just like I said before. Next is the right place. So I've been learning about favor a lot this year, and what favor is, how we attain it, what that is, because a lot of times we hear the word favor, we're like, it's the Lord's unmerited favor, that's what grace is, all the things. But there are a lot of times this year the Lord spoke to me about me having certain favor. So I wanted to learn more about this, and my pastor taught me this a couple months ago when I asked him about it. But he said that favor can have a location, and sometimes it's up to us to get to that location in order for us to receive the full potential of that favor. So to add to that, I would say that certain favor, you have to be in the right position as well to receive it. So going through the Bible again, there are several instances of people that were in certain positions that the Lord favored them in order to bless them and other people. There are people who had proximity to power, who the Lord blessed them so that they could free their people some way, somehow, that they could bless their people, so they could move on to the next stage of their life, to the promise that God had given them. So Nehemiah, the building of God's temple, he had favor with the king, to go off and be like, these are my people, like the Jewish people, like, can I go back and rebuild God's temple? Nehemiah had favor to build. Joseph, he had the dreams to interpret, the gift of interpretation for the dreams. The king, again, made him his right-hand man. Esther, so she had proximity to power as well. Her grace, her favor with the king allowed her and her people to live past the desecration that someone else was trying to do on their name, to live past like a genocide, right? So God favored them so that his will could be fulfilled in their lives and to affect other people. So this is why we have to be in the right place, and also trust God's timing so that his will can be fulfilled above anything else. The right place also can mean posture. So what is your heart doing that will tell God that you may be ready for the blessing? So I think about a posture being upright or down, so the motives of the heart. Maybe we're waiting, maybe we're in this season because God is waiting for your heart to return back to him. Maybe he needs to shake some things off of your heart and your mind, and in order for you to receive what he's getting ready to send you. So the woman with the issue of blood, right? Jesus was on the way to do something else, another miracle, but she made it her mission to reach him, to touch him. And her heart posture at the time, we can see, was obviously determination, persistence, okay? And she was probably very frustrated, I imagine. 12 years of bleeding uncontrollably, being isolated from people, from loved ones. She knew that Jesus was her answer to her healing. So she took it upon herself to make sure that she got in the proximity that she needed to get her healing. But she was also expectant of the healing. She knew what he could do. So her heart posture was pure, it was determined, and it was expectant. And that's what our faith should say as well. Like, we should be expecting God to come through for us, because he always has. So she had stubborn faith. And sometimes we all need to have stubborn faith as well. We're stubborn in the wrong areas, okay? Like, we're stubborn with our timeline, but the Lord wants us to be stubborn with his. He wants us to be stubborn about him, about getting in his presence, okay? Also, the Samaritan woman at the well. So I like this example because she didn't seek Jesus out, right? Jesus was in her path. So that shows us that sometimes favor will find us and smack us in the mouth, even if we don't know that it's coming, right? So, but she was still in the right place at the right time. Again, so sometimes favor will find us, and her life was instantly changed after her conversation with Jesus. And there may not have been a physical change with her, as we see with other people, other examples in the Bible, but there was an internal change with her that we were able to see. So sometimes the favor is less of an outward expression, and sometimes it's more like God is giving you favor to renew your mind or to change a mindset, or like it. Sometimes I think we tie favor so much to money and houses and cars and lavish things, material things. But what about the favor of just having a better day, or having a renewed spirit, just being joyful, being more faithful, those type of things, that can still be a way of favor in and of itself. It does not always have to be tied to a physical manifestation of wealth. But I love this story as well because it shows another thing about timing and positioning. It's actually a story of salvation. So she gets saved because Jesus is like, you drink from me, that well will never run dry. She goes then to tell the whole town about Jesus. Come see about this man who told me everything about myself. So in that moment, in that instant, she was saved. She received salvation. And this was a revelation the Lord gave me. And I was like, wow, even the moment that we get saved is a issue of timing and a posture. So a lot of us are praying for different loved ones, family members, even like celebrities and everything like that, right? And we're wishing and hoping and praying for them to be saved, for them to turn or return back to Jesus, back to God. But it's not happening yet. This is a timing thing. Sometimes things don't happen the way we think they should. And that's okay, because it's all going to happen in God's time. Our time is not his. Sometimes things have to happen that way in order for there to be a testimony like the Samaritan woman at the well. You get what I'm saying? So again, right timing and posture. Okay. So I hope that breaks down some things for you guys about being in the right place, being in the right time. I hope that you are able to take some personal inventory. I know I do. I try to regularly. I ask myself, Lord, am I rushing your timing? Am I pushing your pace? Like, I'm not trying to do that. Maybe sometimes I am, but forgiveness is for everyone. But it's important to know that it's in our human nature to want to do things in a certain time and in a certain way, but we have to stay tethered to the presence of God so that we don't miss what he's trying to tell us. So naturally, we'll want to be on our own timeline, and that's okay. We just have to know how to bring it back to God and to know that things are going to work out according to his will overall. He is sovereign, which means that he knows all, the beginning, middle, and the end. So since we know that he knows all, we have to then put our trust in him that his timing is going to be better than anything that we can produce in our finite minds, right? And just because things don't look like they are progressing on the outside does not mean that God is not working behind the scenes. He's always working behind the scenes to make sure that our dreams that he's planted within us are being reached and that they're being exceeded, actually, beyond our expectations. So I just want to encourage you. You are in the right place. It just might not be the right time. And that's okay. We have waiting, we have preparation, training. That doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. I used to hold a condemnation in my heart about that. Like, well, if this ain't coming through for me, then Lord, that must mean that I've done something to maybe disappoint you, or I've done something to get myself off of your scale. And honestly, like, the devil is a liar because who am I to say that? And God does not hold us in a place of bondage like that. The only thing God is doing is he's working things out so that everything can mesh together according to his purpose for us, for his will for us, for his timeline for us. So we have to be positioned, like our heart and our spirits have to be in the right place in order for us to receive everything that he's promised for us. So while we're waiting, while we're working, while we're in the midst of transition, we have to be positioned so that God can prosper us. And that is my prayer for you, friend. Okay. So thank y'all so much for listening. Thank you again for hitting that subscribe button, the like button, sharing with a friend, leaving a comment, those 5 stars, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the like. Okay. More content is coming soon. I love you all. Stay encouraged. And remember, you are in the right place. All right. Bye.